Alright, so let's revise our guessing game. Specifically what we're going to do is give our players another guess, and we'll do that by requesting input again. So at the moment we've got the code on line 6, which tests whether guess is less than answer. Then we print a message, please guess higher. We're going to add some code down here on line 8, and we're going to type guess equals int parentheses input left to right parentheses and then a closing right parentheses. Now it's important that this line is indented at the same level as line 7, and in my case you can see that it is. Both lines are part of the same code block and are indented to the same level. Alright, so at this point we've got a second guess from the player. The next step is to see if that guess was correct or not. So we're going to add some code on line 9 now. If guess is equal to answer, so two equal signs there, colon, and then the next line print parentheses, double quote, well done, you guessed it. And obviously we've got a closing double quote and right parentheses there. So we're comparing guess to answer to see if they got the correct answer. So note that we have to use two equal symbols here, one on line 8 and one on line 9. A single equal is used when binding a variable to a value, or when assigning a value to a variable, if you prefer to think of it that way. Now when testing for equality, we use two equal signs. Okay, so that's all we need to do. We've used an if statement to check if they got the right answer. I'll leave the code like that because I want to make it clear that you don't have to have elif and else in your if statements. The code would benefit from an else clause, but we'll come back to that. Alright, so that's the second guess when the first guess was lower than the answer. We'll do the same thing if it was higher. So I'm going to come down specifically to the code here, and on line 13, type the same code in. I could copy and paste it. I'll type it in again. Guess equals int, left parentheses, input, left to right parentheses, and then closing parentheses. If, on the next line, guess is equal to, so two equal signs, answer colon, press enter, print, parentheses, double quotes, all done, you guessed it. Alright, so we've done the same when testing whether the guess is greater than the answer as well. And again, very important that you've got the correct indentation there and that the code's indented nicely under the print statement on line 12, which we've done. So our if and elif blocks each contain now another if block. Specifically, that's the blocks on lines 9 to 10 and also on lines 14 to 15. The two if statements are indented one level at the same level as the other lines in the same block, as you can see. Lines 10 and 15, they're indented another level because they're in another block. Those lines will only be executed when the condition guess is equal to answer is true. Alright, so let's see if this works. I'm just going to run this as opposed to debugging. And I'm going to start by entering 9 as the first guess. Please guess lower, you can see on the screen. Now there's quite a few tests to do here to check every possible path through the code. So let's guess correctly this time. I'm going to enter 5 as the second guess. We get the message, well done, you guessed it, printed by line 15. So if you're not sure why the message came from line 15 rather than line 10, then run the program in the debugger to check that. I'm going to run the program again. This time I'm going to enter 1. So you can see we've got the message telling us to guess higher. So I'm going to enter 5. Well done, you guessed it on the screen, and this output came from line 10. And again, if you're not sure why that's the case, make sure you run the code through the debugger, step through the code, and you'll see that that's the case. Alright, the code's working when we guess correctly the second time, but what happens if we get the second guess wrong? Well, let's test that. So I'm going to enter 1 again, and now I'm going to enter 9. And as you can see, that's not really very helpful. The program's terminated without telling us what happened. I wanted to show that you don't have to use elif and else clauses, but we really should use else here to print out a message when the second guess is wrong. So let's actually add the code. So I'm going to come up to do that on after line 10. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to press backspace so that my else is on the same level as the if. Else colon, enter, print on the next line, parentheses, sorry, you have not guessed correctly. And we want to do the same thing when the guess is too low. And that's down here on line 18, which it will be when I type it. I'm backspacing again to make sure the else is at the same indentation level as the if. Else, print, parentheses, double quotes, And of course that should be you have not guessed correctly, not you have guessed correctly, because of course that means the else is executed if the guess has not been entered correctly. Same down here, so sorry, you have not guessed correctly. Okay, I got it right in the end. All right. So again, I've mentioned it, but pay careful attention here to the indentation. The if and else keywords have to be indented to the same level. This now makes it very easy to see which else or elif goes with which if. The indentation is essential for Python to understand what we want it to do, but the added benefit is that it also makes the code easier for us to read. Alright, so we're going to run the program again now. And I'm just going to do the same thing. In my case, I'm going to enter 1 as the first guess, 9 as the second one. And this time we've got a message, sorry, you have not guessed correctly. So run the program yourself and experiment with different values for your guesses. The answer is always 5, which is a bit boring, but has the advantage to make it easier to test the program. In other words, you know which messages to expect. Alright, so in the next video, we'll look at more of the conditional operators. See you in the next video.